natural brilliancy in the manner that became her best. They were equally dissimilar in appearance and character. Rosalind, the elder, now in her 22nd year, was tall and white, with calm grey eyes and auburn tresses, a very faint likeness to the Rosalind of Shakespeare's comedy, whom I imagine a brunette, if you will, but a slender, airy creature full of the softest, quickest impulses. Miss Wingrave, with her slightly lymphatic fairness, her fine arms, her majestic height, her slow utterance, was not cut out for adventures. She would never have put on a man's jacket and hose. Indeed, being a very plump beauty, she may have had reasons apart from her natural dignity. Perdita, too, might very well have exchanged the sweet melancholy of her name against something more in consonance with her aspect and disposition. She had the cheek of a gypsy and the eye of an eager child, as well as the smallest waist and lightest foot in all the country of the Puritans. When you spoke to her, she never made you wait, as her handsome sister was wont to do, while she looked at you with a cold, fine eye, but gave you your choke of a dozen answers before you had uttered half your thought. The young girls were very glad to see their brother once more, but they found themselves quite able to spare part of their attention for their brother's friend. Among the young men, their friends and neighbors, the belle jeunesse of the colony, there were many excellent fellows, several devoted swains, and some 2 or 3 who enjoyed the reputation of universal charmers and conquerors. But the homebred arts and somewhat boisterous gallantry of these honest colonists were completely eclipsed by the good looks, the fine clothes, the punctilious courtesy, the perfect elegance, the immense information of Mr. Arthur Lloyd. He was in reality no paragon. He was a capable, honourable, civil youth, rich in pounds sterling, in his health, and complacency and his little capital of uninvested affections. But he was a gentleman. He had a handsome person, he had studied and travelled, he spoke French, he played the flute, and he read verses aloud with very great taste. There were a dozen reasons why Miss Wingrave and her sister should have thought their other male acquaintance made but a poor figure before such a perfect man of the world. Mr. Lloyd's anecdotes told our little New England maidens a great deal more of the ways and means of people of fashion in European capitals than he had any idea of doing. It was delightful to sit by and hear him and Bernard talk about the fine people and fine things they had seen. They would all gather round the fire after tea in the little wainscoted parlour, and the 2 young men would remind each other across the rug of this, that, and the other adventure. Rosalind and Perdita would often have given their ears to know exactly what adventure it was, and where it happened, and who was there, and what the ladies had on. But in those days a well-bred young woman was not expected to break into the conversation of her elders, or to ask too many questions, and the poor girls used therefore to sit fluttering behind the more languid, or more discreet curiosity of their mother. That they were both very fine girls Arthur Lloyd was not slow to discover, but it took him some time to make up his mind whether he liked the big sister or the little sister best. He had a strong presentiment, an emotion of a nature entirely too cheerful to be called a foreboding, that he was destined to stand up before the parson with one of them. Yet he was unable to arrive at a preference, and for such a consummation a preference was certainly necessary, for Lloyd had too much young blood in his veins to make a choice by lot and be cheated of the satisfaction of falling in love. He resolved to take things as they came, to let his heart speak. Meanwhile, he was on very pleasant footing. Mrs. Wingrave showed a dignified indifference to his intentions, equally remote from a carelessness of her daughter's honour and from that sharp alacrity to make him come to the point, which, in his quality of young man of property, he had too often encountered in the worldly matrons of his native islands. As for Bernard, all that he asked was that his friend should treat his sisters as his own, and as for the poor girls themselves, however each may have secretly longed that their visitor should do or say something marked, they kept a very modest and contented demeanour. Towards each other, however, they were somewhat more on the offensive. They were good friends enough and accommodating bedfellows. They shared the same four-poster, betwixt whom it would take more than a day for the seeds of jealousy to sprout and bear fruit. But they felt that the seeds had been sown on the day that Mr. Lloyd came into the house. Each made up her mind that if she should be slighted, she would bear her grief in silence, and that no one should be any the wiser, for if they had a great deal of ambition, they also had a large share of pride. But each prayed in secret, nevertheless, that upon her the selection, the distinction might fall. They had need of a vast deal of patience, of self-control, of dissimulation. In those days, a young girl of decent breeding could make no advances whatever, and barely respond, indeed, to those that were made. She was expected to sit still in her chair, with her eyes